This past summer, the Pacific Northwest experienced a rare heat wave. In Oregon, at least 115 people died from the extreme heat event, an event climate expert Erica Fleischman says will become more common.
If emissions of greenhouse gases continue at current rates, an event like that is likely to occur every 5 to 10 years by the middle of the century.
Fleischman is the director of the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute. She says climate change is making all types of weather more extreme, with one extreme event exacerbating another. Take, for example, the recent hurricanes in the South.
The hurricane knocked out electricity, which meant that people did not have access to cooling.
Extreme heat now ranks as the leading weather-related cause of death in the country. This week, President Biden launched a strategy to protect workers from the impact of rising temperatures linked to climate change. Oregon and Washington are among a handful of states with heat standards for those working outdoors.
In fact, heat stress can be deadly.
Oregon enacted a temporary order this summer requiring employers to take certain steps when the temperatures rise above 80 degrees.
Right now, this is a temporary rule, but Oregon OSHA hopes to make it a permanent one by the end of the year. Keely Chalmers, KGW News.
We use filters all the time to make the air we breathe cleaner and healthier. Filters are even starting to be used to remove carbon dioxide from the air. Facilities that filter carbon from the air are springing up around the globe. The world's largest opened this month in Iceland. The technology is still new, but it's about to get a lot better.
I'm excited to work on a very important problem.
May Nyman is a chemistry professor at Oregon State University. She was just selected to help lead a $24 million federal effort to develop ways to actually extract carbon from the air.
We are studying very different molecules that have never been used for carbon capture technology.
Simply put, she and her team will look at developing a molecular mixture of sorts that would react with and remove CO2 right out of the air. It could then be used in filters in plants like the one in Iceland and hopefully help slow down the warming.
I would really hope that someday it could make a difference.
Keely Chalmers, KGW News. Rising sea levels, shrinking ice, and much more extreme weather events like storms, droughts, and heat waves. They're all trends that have increased over the last several decades, and according to a new international report, these trends will get much worse in the future. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, report released this week says Earth's climate is getting so hot, the temperature limit set in the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement will be surpassed in about a decade.
And looking to the future, we are continuing to look at the possibility of a really scary amount of warming.
Philip Mode is a climate scientist at Oregon State University. He also worked on two previous IPCC reports since 2000, and this one shocked even him.
Honestly, my heart sank. When you bundle, 8 new years of science and observations into one package, it really is a very sobering read.
The report says as the planet warms, places will get hit more, not just by extreme weather, but by multiple climate disasters that occur simultaneously. It also makes it clear humans are to blame.
Approximately 100% of the warming in the last 50 years is because of human activities.
They could not say it too strongly that we are in a climate crisis.
OSU ecology professor William Ripple has long studied our climate crisis as well. He says this report sounds the alarm that we are running out of time. Ripple recently published his own report outlining solutions. The first, cut carbon emissions drastically.
So we're suggesting that we immediately start phasing out fossil fuels with an eventual ban on them. And one thing that might help is to put a price on carbon.
Second, his report calls for the development of global climate reserves, natural solutions like leaving forests uncut.
Yeah, so we're calling them strategic climate reserves, but these are really nature reserves to store and sequester carbon.
Ripple says it's also critical schools start adding climate change curriculum because these scientists know all too well the future we leave for our children is one they will need to be prepared for. Keely Chalmers, KGW News.
It was during a routine trip to round up underwater instruments that Oregon State University Marine Ecologist Francis Chan discovered something he didn't expect.
Really surprisingly, the oxygen levels were still really low. And in fact, what I saw just last week was the lowest that we've seen this year.
When you think of low oxygen zones in the ocean, these images might come to mind. This video was taken back in 2006. It shows dead crabs littering the ocean floor, the result of no oxygen in the water. It's also called a dead zone.
And it's turned out to be a really bad year.
Chan has been tracking dead zones for more than a decade. Back in spring, he correctly predicted the dead zone this summer.
We started this story early because we thought that we might see this, and unfortunately we were right.
But what he didn't predict was just how long it would last.
Low oxygen, it started back in April. So it's been months and months and months, and that's a really long time to hold your breath.
He also didn't realize how far it would reach. Last week, OSU oceanographer Jack Barth was conducting research off the central Washington coast when he too found very little oxygen in the water.
I think this late in the season, we start to expect the change to come and the winds to shift and maybe wash out some of that low oxygen water, but not yet.
The result, sea life like crabs have been moving to shallower areas, causing a reshuffling of sorts in our ocean.
So it really does affect how those populations are distributed along the coast. And therefore, as we go out to fish, either commercially or for fun, things are disrupted.
I think that the thing that is worrisome is that this kind of warmer, more summery weather, that's the shape of things to come with climate change.
It's a change these scientists suspect will become the norm in our changing climate. In the meantime, they're just hoping the fall storms return things to normal, at least for a while.
Hopefully the next time I talk to you, I can tell you that the 2021 hypoxia season has ended.
Keely Chalmers, KGW News.
This little grove of Douglas fir trees have been included in our study.
On the western edge of the Reed College campus,
So this is just one site of many.
sits a study site more than 100 feet tall.
So these are two of our subject trees right here.
This grove of Douglas fir trees will give researchers a glimpse into the future and how all trees will handle a changing climate.
So trees in urban centers are really good proxies for they're exposed to high temperature, increased CO2, and things that we predict to be in future climates.
Students have already collected branch samples for testing, but soon they'll be turning these normal trees into smart trees. This summer, students will be climbing 100 feet up into these trees to install special sensors. These sensors will be able to track exactly what the trees are experiencing in this urban climate.
These are sensors we leave in the trees that give us information not just on the trees themselves, but also on the environment around the trees.
In addition to studying how the trees are handling the environment around them, the researchers are also studying how those stressors are passed down to communities that depend on those trees for not only comfort, like shade, but also health.
Just to understand how trees can continue to provide the services that we need in our communities in terms of cooler air temperatures and reduced air pollution.
It's a tall order, but one these researchers are ready to tackle to find out what exactly is happening 100 feet up in the air to our trees, our forests, and our environment.